We are live now into Deep, so I would love you. First of all, I'd say hi to everyone in Business Bootcamp. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I know in Bali it's the evening, so thank you for taking the time. This is going to be a fabulous half an hour of pure value. I have high hopes for what you're going to share with us, and I would love you to introduce yourself first to the group, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Samina, for having me. So I am the Chief Operating Officer with Epic Revenue Consultants. We are a consulting firm who deals with revenue management all the way from small boutique property all the way to full service properties in metropolitan cities. We also offer software as a service. So think about all the spreadsheets and everything that GMs, revenue managers, sales directors go through, and consolidated that into a very cost-effective reporting tool. And we can pretty much work with any PMS, cloud-based PMS, and hard-based PMS softwares that are out there. And then last but not least, we also deal in marketing solutions. One of our most recent items, and that's social media, local targeting, to the extent meta search, SEM, and then even full service strategy. For hoteliers, again, across the board. We have very distinct and diverse areas. Before my current position, so before Epic Revenue Consultants, I had 10 years of background with Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, which is the largest franchisor of hotels in the world, about 9,300 hotels. And basically what I did there was revenue management for a couple of years, and then really moving into the distribution side. So OTA partnerships, wholesale partnerships, meta search, and really, educating the entire organization on, what is the best mix, the best distribution mix for our hotels, and ultimately how that translates to profitability, not only for the hotels, but ultimately for Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. Unfortunately, due to COVID, things have changed. Which is why I'm at Epic Revenue Consultants, but I can share the link with Samina later. It's epic-rev.com. We are a global organization, and we're happy to help in any way that we can. So I'm happy to be here, and thank you, Samina, for inviting me.
Yeah, I love the name, Epic Revenue Consultants. It sounds really fun and funky. And you're located in New Jersey, you were telling me, but it sounds like you do have a global offering, which is obviously fabulous. This group is located around the globe.
Yeah.
So do you currently have clients in other parts of the world other than the USA?
Yeah. So, we are fairly startup. We've incorporated in December of 2018. And, pre-COVID, we were on a trajectory of getting to about 100 hotels, mostly full service in the major metropolitan areas. But then even to the extent software, providing software to hotels. My background, my partner's background, Abe Salam, he's worked with hotels in Egypt. We have worked with hotels in Asia in the past, specifically as it pertains to Southeast Asia and China. I had dotted lines when I was at Wyndham in terms of what the distribution strategy would be, and even the revenue strategy to that extent. So,
do you think it does vary according to region, in your opinion? Is it very important to be regional specific?
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah. I mean, there's one of the biggest things that I was a champion on was, the US office can sometimes be very, kind of biased to say, this is the way that we're going to do it. But, I was like, you have to be able to be strategic in your respective markets. There is no one size fits all, let alone on a regional basis, versus like a hotel versus a hotel right down the street. It could be a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. So in terms of guidance, if you were to tell us, today the group really focuses on surviving this crisis, but thriving afterwards. So, what can we do now so that when this is over and businesses open up again, so we hit the ground running and we actually accelerate at a great pace? Are there things that you can share today that are actually valid to the Asia market as well as the USA market? Because that's basically the
Absolutely. So, I'll kind of break it out into a couple of different areas, but I think, first and foremost, you want to be able to survive the current crisis, right? So, hopefully you have, some money saved up or access to some credit lines. I mean, we don't know how long this is going to last. So the first and foremost, you want to control your costs. And once you've kind of done that, and whether your hotel is closed right now or you have very minimal staff or something along those lines, really that's the most important thing. And I really want everybody to be able to survive this.
Yes.
And then, you know, as we're coming out of this, really work with your teams. So, you know, Samina, you and I were talking about your website, you know, as it pertains to cleanliness principles. I mean, that is going to be first and foremost, the probably most important thing that people even look at before reviews, before your offerings. They want to know that when they walk in that door, like there's going to be a level of social distancing. You know, people are not going to, what does that procedure look like? And being very transparent about that. And making sure that your staff is as informed on that, not only just on the website, right? Because everybody on property is an extension of your, you know, of your brand, of your hotel. So the one item that I would say is be as transparent as you possibly can, not only on your direct website, but also in the OTAs. You know, there's a content section in Booking, in Expedia, and to the extent you can change a lot of, you know, what's in there in terms of like what steps you've taken. You know, I've seen really great best practices right now, even, you know, people making videos or individual boutique hotels making videos and villas on, you know, what areas are they cleaning, you know, very short, like 1 to 3 minute video in terms of like, you know, we go here, this is how long we spend here. And it can be very easily done, right? Like you can use your iPhone and try to make it as professional as possible and not trying to, you know, add on any more cost by any means. So I would say that's really important. And then obviously making sure that your team is using, you know, is as well informed on the PPE equipment that you're using, that there's different signage in place, you know, as, you know, your guests are coming there. One of the biggest things is the first round of adopters, right? Who come out of this. I mean, there's so many people that are kind of like revenge travel. It is the buzzword right now. And
is it?
It is,
what does that mean? What is that?
Revenge travel is, so everybody's been sitting in their homes for the better part of the last 2 or 3 months. And they can't wait to get out.
Okay. They're like fighting against the world. Yeah, I love it. Perfect. Need some of that. And
you know, where else but, you know, hotels and villas and vacation rentals can we invite them? And they want to be able to feel comfortable there. So, you know, I would say, you know, make sure that your team knows the approach that you're safeguarding and how you're moving to, you know, how you're planning on moving forward through all of that.
I love what you're saying, because with my managers, I've had this discussion, and finally our housekeeping staff are the superheroes. They're the ones who will appear in all the promotional material, you know, with all the right like protective gear on. And we're even thinking of making coordinated face masks that match the uniforms, just for something kind of, because we're on a tropical island, it just feels more pleasant to have that than the sterile masks. So, you know, we're already looking at that stuff. And as everyone knows, there's loads of people making masks at the moment. So you can get those really special tailor-made ones. And I think it's very important to put that in our advertising now as well, and our social media.
That is absolutely right. I mean, you know, you should have a uniform to the extent, and again, not trying to add like a significant amount of cost, but you know, if you can have a very, you know, concise and consistent uniform that shows, you know, through pictures, through media, through anything that you're trying to do on your site, you know, and in the various areas, you know, if you think about Expedia and Booking and all the OTAs, they typically have been very, you know, wanting for, you know, various pictures of rooms and everything like that. You know, reach out to your market manager and say, hey, like, we want to show that we have a very consistent uniform, and that, you know, everybody is so focused on, you know, and see what they say. It is some of the conversations that we're having, obviously, you know, here in the States as well, but it's going to be so important, you know, to really demonstrate that. People will come with different opinions. There'll be those risk takers who are like, yeah, finally we can travel. And then there's those who are still going to hang on to the potential risk, especially in the more tropical areas where maybe there isn't a reputation for the hygiene. We almost have to step up the game that extra bit just to really show what we're doing. You know, I think for the folks that are in, you know, some of these warmer climates, I know you have your resort in you know,
Asia,
Bali. You know, to the extent it doesn't seem like, whether it's regionally or whatever the case is, that there's been as much, as many, cases, and that's at least, that's how it sounds like from the US media over here. Everything's so bad over here, but, so I think because of the warmer weather, I think you have a little bit of a one up, and you're going to see a lot of localized travel. That was the other thing that I wanted to focus on, right? So, whether there's border shutdowns or, people are not going to be wanting to fly. Again, you're in, a tropical destination and people are in their homes. They still want to get out and they still want to take advantage of what they have out there, right? So how can you cater and even to have a localized package that's only available to, folks in Bali or folks, in neighboring countries that can get there by boat or however the travel is. And what does that pre-stay communication, look like as well? So I think, obviously cleanliness first, it's a very methodic process. Cleanliness first, people are going to hit that COVID safety button or whatever, whatever the link is, look through that. And even to the extent, I think you had mentioned some of the hoteliers, range from like 30 all the way up to like 50 to 70 rooms, if you can put together, I've seen Marriott do this, for some of their properties that are pretty large in scale, but, if you know that you're not going to be at full capacity, at least in the short term, what are things that you can think outside the box? Maybe you don't have somebody next to you on both sides and in front of you, until you hit a certain occupancy threshold, right? To the extent that you can do that, obviously, but it just adds a little bit more of a differentiator versus you versus another hotel down the street who's like, I didn't even think about anything like that, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And at the end of the day, you're just trying to convince a guest, the first adopters, to get out of their homes, come to your hotel, hopefully leave a good review, or just tell their family and say, I had this great stay, at the Persona Resort, and, they didn't have a person next to me on either side. Everybody was wearing their masks. They went through a paper that went with like all the different cleanliness items. And I felt so comfortable. And that's how you get the second round of people, right? So
it's almost also practical and obvious that it feels too easy. It's just things
I
that
know,
we feel
right?
like it's just so sensible and practical. Recently I saw a great video by one of the big chains in the US, and it was all about how they were cleaning the lifts and the common areas and the checkout and the check-in cleaning procedures. They showed us cleaning the telephone and everything. And I just thought, and they had the automatic hand sanitizer thing at the front door. And I just thought, it's just such a practical, almost boring video, but that's what people want now. They don't want the glamorous drinking from a coconut, sitting by the pool. They want, how did you clean the common areas and how clean is my room? So we have
Samina, you hit the nail right on the head. It seems so obvious, but if you can put together like a 30-second video of somebody wiping down the lift, somebody, wiping the counters, people who have masks on, just, people who are around the resort, but like keeping a good distance, that goes a long way in the consumer psyche, right? And I think it's going to be so important, moving forward. So those are the two items that I want to say as it pertains to team, cleanliness and locale. Definitely wanted to talk about kind of, what you can do from a pre-stay perspective and a reservations. So as I mentioned, my background is mainly in distribution for the last 5 years. Started off managing the OTA relationships with Expedia, Booking, Agoda, Priceline, Ctrip, and moving up the line to vice president of channel and distribution strategy at Wyndham. So, as it pertains to your web direct, I'm a big fan, obviously. And I think this is a huge opportunity to really highlight, I had a conversation with Charlie from Triptease, who, him and I are really great friends. I know, Samina, that's how you found me.
That's how I found you. Yeah.
And, I think this is a huge opportunity for hotels to really be able to differentiate. I don't know what margins you guys pay the OTAs. Maybe it's 20%, 25%.
It's between 17 and 20%.
Okay, 17 and 20%. So if you think about your own respective website, and what kind of value you can provide to consumers, you essentially, let's say, your website costs, I don't know, 5% as a cost of sale to run and to maintain. Between, the 17 minus the 5, you have 12% of kind of leeway or runway to kind of play with to convince a consumer to come to you directly. And not that you want to, match that 17% by any means, but now is a great time to, see what you can do in terms of package offering, in terms of a value add, in terms of, potential free upgrade.
So would you do it as a value add rather than a price reduction?
Yes, absolutely. Always. I'm a big believer that when you reduce your price, everybody else just reduces their price, and it's a no-win situation for anybody.
Yeah.
But if you add a value add and you know that your bar price is set where it needs to be, you have your competition kind of scratching their head and saying, wait, why are we going the other way when they're going, they're adding additional value. And if you think about not only hotels, but the retail space, to the extent like Walmart, Target, which are, fairly large retail stores in the States, much of what they've done is kind of more value add than discounting approach. And it comes back to perceived value of the consumer. And yes, you're going to have some consumers that are out there that are going to only look for discounts. And maybe, you have a very segmented room type that offers those types of discounts. But, to the extent, if you can have that and get them in and then say, hey, for like $5 or $10 more, wouldn't you want like a bottle of champagne or, and then be able to upsell them a little bit.
Yeah, I love that idea as well, because it allows you to have a USP. For example, we're thinking of offering free boat transfers, which can be costly, but more than costly, it's a hassle. So to have that thrown in, the cost, it's no different to using an OTA than a direct booking, but the hassle of having to book your transfer, whereas knowing it's done for you, is just such a value add that you can almost not put a price to that. So I feel like I agree with you so much with what you've just said.
100%. It's funny that you mentioned that, because anytime my wife and I travel, if a hotel has a transfer for us from like from the bus station or from the airport, 100% of the time we book them. When we went to Maldives for our honeymoon, we ended up booking. There's so many amazing resorts there. But we ended up booking the one that had the seaplane transfer as part of the package.
Yeah, I know. I hear you, because that concierge service that we can offer as a direct booking just adds so much more intimacy to the booking, and actually it allows you to charge more and not compromise on price. Because the problem with compromising on price, and I hear this from everybody, is it takes too long to bounce back from that. It just takes too many years to bounce
150%. And I think, those transfer, boat transfers, airport transfers, whatever it is, buses, they're kind of also hurting at the same time too.
Yeah, they are.
So I know that there's a group of individuals or hotels, here, to the extent that does give you a little bit of bargaining power at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So don't discount that. And I think I'm a big believer in partnerships. That our value premise from Epic Revenue Consultants is, we're in the business of value creation, not value extraction. And I believe that having good partnerships adds to, generate value, right? And if you can create some of these partnerships with a local restaurant, a transfer, bus, boat, whatever it is, and you're going to say, hey, there's like 10 different, transfers. We'll partner with you, give us like 10% or give us like a reduced rate so that we can pass that on to the consumer, and you can essentially create your own packages. The OTAs have, won millions upon millions of hundreds of millions of dollars over the last like 10, 15 years, because they have these package things
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like, I'm like scratching my head as hoteliers, like, how come we haven't figured this out?
Well, sometimes it feels hard, doesn't it? It feels like a lot of
does.
work, and a lot of us, especially the smaller hotels, we're overwhelmed with the operational to then go and think about these kind of exciting, fun packages. And that's why it's nice to be inspired. I do think collaboration is really important because it makes it easier. You don't have to think too much. You can just think together. So there's that kind of masterminding concepts, or using an external firm. I actually would prefer to spend the money rather than to an OTA to a kind of a company, because that's kickstarting the economy as well. And we all need to contribute to that after this. You know, we want people to come to us, but we should help other people as well. And you can do that with small businesses by hiring your local taxi driver to do the pickups, for example, in the US or even in Bali.
That's right.
There's many people out of work who will value that.
And it's a, you know, I'm a bit, you know, like you just mentioned, it's helping the overall economy.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's a pay it forward, right?
Yes.
Like you're going to ask that person, and then he or she's going to be like, you know what, you should go visit this restaurant. Right.
Yes.
And people, you know, it's a better, probably the worst word to use. It's viral.
Yeah.
You know, it essentially goes viral.
Yeah.
Because you have people who want to pay it forward, and it continues to move, you know, in a good way.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a bad way.
And as a revenue manager, what is your feeling? Because I know that, you know, OTAs have a bad rep, but what is your feeling about them? Do you like us using them? Do you prefer us not to use them? Like,
so, you know, I think, and I had mentioned it in my interview with Charlie, you have a right to be selfish now. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have to work with every single OTA that's out there. Mm-hmm. And especially, I mean, you know, rate parity is always talked about all the time.
Yeah.
You know, but don't give an OTA a better promotion to the extent it's just going to cost you more and more money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And people are still going to shop around now more than ever. From all the stats that we're seeing right now, you know, if you have parity, if you have a good value proposition, you know, and to the extent like you're readily visible on your, you know, with your brand websites on metasearch or SEO or whatever the case is, you know, people, if they see that your, you know, property looks great on an OTA, will use that as kind of a billboard effect. Mm-hmm. But, you know, across from all the conversations that I'm having with like people at TripTease, Cody, KODDI, which is like an, you know, meta search optimization and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. They're all relaying back that like brand is actually winning share right now. Okay. And, you know, so OTAs are good. I think they are a necessity of, you know, because people do like to kind of like browse through and say, I wonder what's available in Bali, right? And then they like to go through it. And that's never going to change. I mean, some people are very OTA centric. Other people just want to see what's the best value that's out there. I think if you can create the value, you know, you'll be able to get direct bookings. But to the extent, if you know that you have a partner like a wholesaler or an OTA that's proactively undercutting you, or, you know, you caught them giving, you know, your inventory to somebody else who's undercutting you by $10 to $20 to $50 to $100. Yeah. You really need to rethink that relationship, because it's not going to be healthy for your business. And it's just going to think about it from this perspective. Let's say that specific OTA is undercutting you. Typically what happens from a consumer psyche perspective is they will see that rate. Maybe they don't trust that site. You know, it's like Hotel Quickly or something like that. I think that was a big one that used to be in, I don't know what happened to them, but I think they went bankrupt, hopefully. You know, Hotel Quickly, you know, used to do all this crazy stuff on mobile and everything. But if people don't trust that site, they're going to go to the next best OTA, and then they'll go to Expedia or, you know, Traveloka or whoever it is, even if it's not the best rate, but they trust that brand because they do such a great job of advertising, right? So no, it's true. So do you think we have an opportunity here to leverage our relationship with the OTA, or are they, you know, can we go back to them now and say, we'll keep using you, but you've got to reduce your commission rates? You know, it's a very tough conversation. I think they've been very open to, you know, letting the credit lines be a little bit more open, right? So, hey, you know, I can't make my payments for this month, or, is it okay if I pay you, next month 50% or something along those lines? So I think they've been a little bit more flexible. We've had some good success in that, with that for some of our properties that we're managing.
Okay.
There have been some reductions with certain OTAs that we've been able to negotiate on behalf, of our property set.
Okay.
And it might not be for a long period of time, obviously.
Okay.
But
But it's
any
worth
relief,
asking.
it's worth asking the question.
Definitely.
And it's kind of like a catch-22. I mean, yes, you can ask for it, but if they're not getting any bookings, it's not like you're going to be saving any money.
Yeah.
But to the extent as bookings start to trickle in,
Yeah.
you can say, can you just help me out a little bit? I want to work with you, obviously, but
Yeah.
just help me out for now, for the next 3 to 6 months. And then we can always go back to like our other margins or other opportunities.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Are there other opportunities where, we can maybe, trade off and I can give you some package rate, or, what else can we do to, reduce the overall margins?
Yeah. And is now a good time to do that before, while we're still in this kind of
I think it's definitely worth asking the question. Yeah, I think, talk to your market manager, see if there's any opportunity. I know, many hotels have asked that, but, if if your contract's up for renewal, or, if there's opportunity or, potential areas that they're going to be focused on in the next 6 to 12 months, like have those open conversations. Like what can we do together so that you can reduce my overall cost of sale, and where we can work, better together, where it's a win-win conversation. And in some cases, the OTA might say like, no, we're not going to do anything. And in some cases they might say, hey, yeah, we're willing to work with you. And then you kind of know, as it stands, like the world has gotten much smaller, right? And if you look at all of these OTAs and wholesalers, they pretty much sell to the same consumers at this point in time. So really find the OTAs that are keeping rate parity, having good relationships with you, willing to concede on certain items.
Yeah.
And maybe it's worth testing and like cutting off certain OTAs if they don't, if they're not supportive of your business.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially because of some of the stuff that happened when, group cancellations were given out immediately without any discussion. We weren't given a chance to communicate with our customers. So there's that relationship that has been slightly strained for many people as well. So this is a good time to step back in and say, look, we understand this happened. We still want to work together. What's the best thing we can do? And I actually think that unless you try and collect a no, so unless you push the boundaries and just ask, you'll never know. So maybe now that some of us have the time, we're closed or we have a bit more capacity, it's good to start that conversation possibly, rather than wait when it gets crazy again, when everything opens up.
Absolutely. And I saw that you had 2,600 plus folks on like Facebook, which congratulations, Samina.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
We've been open a while.
But I'm sure many of the hotels that are on the phone right now, you have such a great following, whether through your emails, like I said, I'm a big believer in partnerships, and to the extent, you have a very small set of hotels working together, if you have a video, send a video out to your members, pre-opening, to advise them on the new process, safety precautions, post on your Facebook, get it out there. And even to the extent, like, if you're allowed to, by way of, what your email guidelines and everything, your local governments, maybe there's a way to cross collaboration, in terms of like sharing some of those marketing lists. I think that's what the brands do really well, right? Because you have, one consistent, overarching, but there's no reason why, a small set of properties can do the same thing. If I know that one of my folks lives in Bali and they're not going to come see my, hotel in Goa, why wouldn't I try to help you out to the extent, and maybe you have some folks too, and I like I said, we're all in this together, and any way that we can kind of think outside the box, and it can be very consolidated, right? So you don't have to put something out there, but it can be something that's for like only your members, or you can say, hey, we partnered with these properties, and if you live in these countries, like, you're probably not going to be traveling via air in the next 3 to 6 months, but check out this property, look at their video, to the extent.
Yeah. And should we just cold outreach to them? How do we find these potential collaborating properties around the world? Just do some investigation and reach out.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I know that you've, created a list of properties, in Bali and in other areas.
Yep.
But, to the extent, if you have relationships, pre-existing relationships, I mean, there, a lot of hotels are going through a lot of different things. So to create a new partnership might be a little bit harder right now because you just don't know to the extent of, are they going to be around 2 months from now? And, you don't want to have a conflicting message, but, if you have pre-existing relationships already, I would focus more on that. If they have a member base. So what I was thinking was kind of the smaller hotel group that you've already created and seeing if there's any opportunity within that.
Yeah, and this is a fabulous group with people from all over the world. So there is that definitely, oh, you're going, live in the US or you're going to the US, go here, and vice versa, coming to Asia. So there's less of that conflict of interest as well. And actually, I like the collaboration thing because I do believe when people go to a destination, they don't really go to your property, they go to the area. So we often in our marketing try and talk about where we're located rather than us, because no one's really coming to stay with you. I mean, yeah, of course, that's the finer detail, but they're essentially coming to the destination. So even to partner up with people in your destination and do some sort of fun video that you can all share, or, some sort of marketing campaign about the area and how that's recovering, that's a good idea to split the cost and the time and the effort as well, if you can make that happen.
Yeah, and I feel you hit the nail on the head. People go to want to stay in a property and feel like they're comfortable, relaxed, but really during the day, like, where are they? They're at the beach, they're visiting different places, and that's a good way to share the cost too, right? Because a lot of these restaurants and experiences are also hurting and saying, like, hey, maybe we can hire a videographer who's local and who loves our area and can take in all of the great things. So one, to the extent, the cleanliness videos too, maybe it's like a consolidated effort in, your local area to show like different restaurants, how they're cleaning, people with masks, different things, going back to your hotel as well. And then maybe a secondary video saying, all right, now that we got the cleaning out the way, and we're very hygienic, here's all the amazing things that we can do, or maybe you just combine the videos together, right?
Yeah, no, and also because the people in this group are action takers, that's why they've joined a group like this. They want to do something. Possibly they can be that voice in the community that they're part of, because obviously there's various different businesses in the area that have not been exposed to this kind of idea or this conversation. So I did this before to the people in this group, like, go and be the leaders in your community and come up with these ideas and start creating this material. And, that's going to help others be positive about what's going to happen, because the last thing you want is your whole community feeling down in the dumps or negative. We need that, comeback fighting spirit to actually come back from this. I do believe that. I think that's essential.
That's
just
right.
That idea that it's worth fighting for, it's worth trying to get those customers back.
Yeah, and those first adopters, like I mentioned, are going to be the most important, part of the business. And I mentioned it in multiple conversations with, folks all around the industry, is we have to do everything right the first time out the gate. And, essentially, and I feel so bad for so many of the hoteliers that are out there. I aspire to be a hotelier just like many of you, and I respect, all the sacrifices and everything that you've gone through. And I really want everybody to come out on the other side. I'm a big believer that there's so much business to be out there. And maybe everybody's not going to get it in the first round, or to the extent, but there's enough to go around. And if we can all do things right, and sometimes take a little bit of a risk to put out a video, work on some additional items, or kind of think outside the box together, we're all going to come out of this. And people, the second round adopters, the third round adopters, I can tell you right now, I've already scheduled 2 vacations.
I love that.
One in August in DC and one in Orlando. Again, I'm staying local, right? I mean, to the extent I'm going to fly, most likely, the thought was that I was going to fly to Orlando. Maybe might make it a road trip now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But to the extent, I've already looked at those sites. I've already, one's a Hilton in DC, one's, an old, one of our Wyndhams, which I booked before I left the organization. And I've already looked at their sites in terms of their cleanliness procedures,
Yeah.
what they're doing. And, I'm already been sold on that piece. So I already know that they're going to be doing everything they can. Airlines, I haven't really seen what they're doing to clean everything.
No, they've kept low key because I think they don't know yet.
They don't know yet, but I think it's amazing that the hotel industry is leading the forefront.
Yes, really
in
resilient.
This. And I think, people who are going to be taking those steps to do all of that stuff. And again, it seems so, common sense. But
Yeah.
I think being able to do that, creating the partnerships, and then, maintaining that value proposition, to your guests potentially, and think about things that you can do for free as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that are so low cost, like, many resort properties probably do, like, obviously a welcome drink and everything like that, but like early check-in, because you're not going to be full. Let's be realistic. Late checkout to an extent, and keeping like, anything that you can do for free that, potentially you might have put a cost to it in the past, or, in terms of upgrades.
Upgrades, it's always a good one, I think. It's a nice.
Yeah, transfers, like you had mentioned, even the extent like partnering with a local restaurant. I know you have a restaurant on site, I believe, Sumina, but some of the hotels on the phone might not have that. So, that those restaurants probably want to be as open as well as much as you do.
Yeah. We've talked before about partnering with experiences, so horse riding, paddleboarding, if you don't have a dive shop, diving. So we've talked about, packaging really fun experiences so people feel that it's I think everyone's fed up of having to think about, what's going to happen and the uncertainty. If you can provide some certainty that this is going to be a fabulous holiday, it's going to be so easy, everything's going to be so clean, and you're going to have all this fun because here's the experiences as well. That's just such a nice, relaxing way to just get away from where we've been these last 2-3 months and have some, and like you said, people are booking things ahead of time because they want to be hopeful. And as long as you have enough flexibility in the booking that you can cancel, why not? Some people are ready to take that risk.
Yeah, and to the extent, I mean, I know, like I said, everything is very local, but, to the extent if you have, we call them CVBs, in the States, but if there's like local municipalities that you can get in touch with, and very cost-effective measures in terms of like advertising potentially locally.
That's a good idea.
I think that'll go a long way. And it doesn't have to be very complicated, by any means. But, having some of those partnerships, whether it's in your local towns or even like neighboring towns or like a major city, and saying like, hey, can we work on something, like we're willing to give you like a 10% commission or something along those lines, to some of those folks to like say, hey, somebody was coming into my restaurant the other day, here's like a business card, or here's like a little, coupon voucher or whatever it is, free upgrade, and it basically states like on the back, cleanliness procedures, you get early check-in, late checkout, et cetera, et cetera. You essentially win as a hotel all of your local share, and that's going to be a huge deal in the beginning.
Yeah, I know you have to leave because it's already 10 past. So as a wrap up, I think, you've come up with some amazing ideas. We could probably talk for hours, brainstorm for hours about how to deal with what's going to happen. But what would your overriding message be to all of us who have hotels right now, or even restaurants you've mentioned? Give us one big takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you, Sumina, for having me, and I'm happy to have gone over time. Hopefully everybody on the phone and on the webinar found it very valuable. I think the one item, obviously going back to my distribution roots, it's easy to give an OTA a better deal, to kind of think that they're going to sell everything for you, and to the extent that is true to some, but if you think about the long-term profitability of your asset, and that's where I come, where again, my firm, Epic Revenue Consultants, comes in, and basically my entire principal base is always, I want our hoteliers to be as profitable as possible. You guys have worked so extremely hard on these properties for some of your lifetimes, sometimes your second, third generations. And make sure that that's really top of mind. Create that value proposition for those guests who are going to come directly to you. And we are seeing those trends right now.
Yeah.
So, to the extent, if you want to be a little bit extra competitive on an OTA, like do it, but also have that same rate, on your brand site, on your hotel site as well, with a couple of extra perks. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen if you're giving it like, a better rate on an OTA, also make sure that you also have that rate on there, but to the extent, add a little bit of differentiation. You will see the bookings come through, and I think there's a lot of articles. I'm not going to go into it in detail today, but, make sure you have, first and foremost, like cleanliness procedures is like front and center, right?
Yeah.
If someone comes to your site, and even finds you on an OTA and then comes to your site afterwards, the first thing that they're going to look at, and a lot of the conversation right now on the OTA side is, how are they going to demonstrate the cleanliness?
Mm-hmm.
They can't really do that. You have all the space on your page to do that.
Yeah.
And that's why if you can be creative for that, putting that on front and center, one, you'll be better off than your competitor hotels, and you'll be better off than the OTAs. And then if you tie that in with value prop, I mean, it's a win-win situation. So
I love that. Yeah, we've actually put a tab on our website which is called COVID. And in there, it's all the boring detail and the pictures and just the reassurance as well for those people. Because I said this to the team, I was like, someone will want to know every single thing that you're doing, and others will just be reassured that you have a tab that's there about it. They may not even go into it, but they know you've thought about it. So I would encourage everyone to do that.
Absolutely. And even to the extent, I mean, the first, I've seen some hoteliers put the first thing that pops up is a video.
Yes.
And it says cleanliness procedures, and it just like automatically plays for like 30 seconds.
Brilliant.
And that's the first thing that people see, and they're like blown away, because they're like, they already know, the whole thing about content is king is knowing what a consumer is looking for. Yeah. Before they even know it themselves. Mm-hmm. Right. And if you can do that, we already know as hoteliers. But if you can do that to the extent, like, you will be better off, and, I think brighter days ahead of us.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I recently came across that myself, that concept of thinking for people before they've even thought of it themselves. And you're right, when people book their trip, they're probably just so excited about booking something and being able to travel. But once they're on the way there, they'll be like, oh, I wonder if they've thought about cleaning and stuff. But if you've already got that on there, you've done that thinking for them. So that's such a good point. That's right. I know that you produce amazing articles for the hotel industry, and I'll share in the comments your LinkedIn so people can find you. Is that the best place to find you?
I'm happy to connect with anybody. Like I said, I am a student and learner of all of you. So, I respect all of our hoteliers, and I'm happy to, my team as well, my partner, we're all in the business of value creation. And we want to see all of you, the hotels. I think, it's been a blessing and a curse, obviously, COVID, but I think there's been so many companies that have been built off of hotels. But at the end of the day, you guys are, the most important piece of the hospitality industry. Mm-hmm. And I think coming out of this, like, I really hope that more companies are thinking about how can we really add value to the hotels versus extract value, right? Yeah. And that's our underlying premise. So definitely connect with me. Check us out, epic-rev.com.
Yeah.
Like I said,
and you've been so gracious, because I know you have a colleague, Victoria, who is an expert in social media, and you've said that she would be willing to talk to the team, which is amazing, because a lot of us actually sometimes feel overwhelmed with our social media responsibilities, and we're small businesses, so we don't necessarily hire someone to do that for us. So for sure, I will ask Victoria to come and speak to the group maybe next week. But in the comments, if anyone has questions, please write them in the comments. Myself or Inder or Elka will answer them, and we will share your details for sure. And hopefully, you never know, get you back in when things start changing and you have more information to share with us. That would be amazing.
I mean, that would be amazing for us. But again, whatever we can do to support you, and however we can do that, we are offering consultations, free consultations.
Oh, amazing.
As well. So
fantastic.
To the extent, if you just want us to double check, even look at your website, what is your strategy coming out of this? I personally will take a half an hour to help you guys, whatever I can do.
That's so valuable. You looked at my website for 3 minutes and I was already really reassured. So, an hour with you would be fantastic. I think I'll have to take you up on that. Thank you so much. Thank you for going over time. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye,
Be safe.
everyone. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.